Just a little, about 10 years ago, I met our speaker. I think we were at the round table meeting over off of Watt Avenue, and it's the middle of July, sweating and drinking coffee, and for the last 10 years, it's just been an honor to run with him, to be a part of him, and to sit around many smoke-filled kitchens and talk about Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's Victor.
Hello, everybody. My name is Victor Silva. I'm an alcoholic. This has been the most complicated introduction to a meeting I've ever been to. Jesus. I've heard Shakespeare. I've heard, free. Beautiful. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And welcome with one day. I won't lie to you and say you're the most important person in this room. I think the most important person in this room is the one that's sitting in your seat. But welcome, and I hope you get a sponsor. And thank you to the Spring Fling. It's got to be one of the neatest things in Sacramento to attend one, a conference. And it's a lot of work, and you guys deserve a big round of applause because you guys do a lot of work. And then Clancy and Joe and Gloria and Mark and Millie. And I don't know if there's anyone else there that was out there in Rio Linda, and I learned that what happens in Rio Linda stays in Rio Linda, So I did my third step, and it's great to be here, and it's great to be here with my home group. And I have this kind of funny thing that I learned along the way. It's not my thing, but I think, and I agree, that you ought to feel like your home group's the best, and I'm willing to go toe-to-toe with anybody. You know what I'm saying? And there's a funny thing. I was reading the other day the long form of the traditions, and two things came to mind. It's our 10th that says we ought to be least organized, and I thought that was interesting. That Alcoholics Anonymous ought not even try to organize itself. And I thought about it, and I said, could you imagine if we had elections for senator in Alcoholics Anonymous or president? An egotistical guy like me would want to, change everything. So they were very wise, And then I read something else, and it was in the next tradition. And it said, nice and hidden inside, it said, we need not praise ourselves. In 12 and a half years that I've been sober, I've never read that. And I've got a mind that's never fit in anywhere. And I always felt like I needed a lot of praise to fill in, and here I come to a place that the answer is the opposite. The more I give, the more it seems that I seem to receive. The more that I try to remove me out of the equation, like the book says, my little plans, my little designs, the more I seem to get back. This is exactly the opposite of what it was that I thought I needed. And it's good to be here. Thank you very much to the committee for asking somebody like me to come out here. It's a long way from being hauled around at Ron and Barbara's house a little over 12 and a half years ago to being told, dude, we don't want nothing you got, just shut up, when you talk, nobody understands, and you're crazy, and we don't know what the hell you're talking about, and, if you're quiet, you somewhat look intelligent, and being told all this stuff, and it's a long way from that, and learning how to conduct myself in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous to be asked to do something like this. The best I could do was I had a pair of busted shorts, a Lollapalooza shirt. I had a goatee that was half shaven up on this side and half down, and my hair was all mangled and my sideburns were up, down, and, and I stank, and I, wasn't brushing my teeth too well, and that's what came to you people, was in that state, absolutely just confused, and so it's good to be here, and I appreciate it. And I'll say this, I learned this from Keith. I don't know about anybody else, but I could have stayed home and been perfectly well depressed tonight. I do a damn good job of I seem to enjoy feeling sorry for myself. You know what I'm saying? I must, because it's something I battle still to this day, And out there, when I drank, I used to like to go to the Pine Cove Bar. I know no one else is frequenting that place, Yeah, man, and you get that Pabst Blue Ribbon and the 2 shots of Well Tequila for $10. I'm sure inflation's kicked in, and it's a little more now. But I used to love going down there, and I used to save a couple quarters to play that song, The Inn by the Doors. And I could hardly wait for that. I could hardly wait for that spiritual moment to happen. You know what I'm saying? Because what would happen is I've of course been feeling sorry for me, and what I'm trying to do is get you to feel sorry for me so you'll buy me a drink. That's the God's honest truth. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of noble guy I am, you know. I don't know what the hell's going on. I like to drink, you know. God, I love drinking. And I love snorting. And I love smoking. But most of all, I like frying. But my absolute favorite was any of the above. Or all of the above. I don't ever recall saying, you know, hey, Vic, you want some of this? No. You know. I don't ever recall somebody saying, hey, Vic, you know, you want to do this fat rail of cocaine? You want to snort this green stuff, this brown stuff, this yellow stuff, this red stuff? You want to smoke it? Yeah. I never thought, you know, hey, what are the chemical effects of this and what can I do? I never thought, gee, I wonder what the pastor, what the priest would think. Hell no, man. I did not analyze, I utilized out there. And whatever you had, it just seemed to be just what I needed at that time. If you've been there, you know what I'm saying. It just seemed like there were certain crevices inside my body and inside my soul and inside my heart and inside my mind that were just lacking my whole life. Always just these weird crevices that I couldn't seem to fill. The amount of praise, sports, failure, doing good, good grades, failing, whatever. I just always had this thing inside that said, Vic, you're not good enough for these people. Vic, you don't fit in with these people. And so I try to hang out with this crowd and I try to hang out with that crowd, and I had this cross identity and I didn't know what the hell to be when I was over there because I thought I was still with these people, you know, and I was always confused. And when I found that medicine, that magic, man, all of a sudden it didn't matter what the hell you thought. What mattered was that what I thought of me was okay. And man, when that happened, shit, I didn't care what the hell it was. It was a natural reaction to have more. I didn't wake up and say, geez, I got the rest of my life to figure out a strategic way to retire early, invest in real estate, and come up with some kind of a strategic plan to come up with a healthy and secure life. Oh, hell no. I lived one day at a time. Where am I going to get the next bag of dope? Where am I going to get the next drink? You know? And what is alcoholism? You hear a lot of things. What is alcoholism? Well, for me, for a guy like me, is I take a drink, and that magic happens, and all of a sudden my buddy Rob shows up. And my buddy Rob is a real nice guy, and he offers me a drink. I can't say no. And after I've had that second drink, it occurs to me the least you could do is reciprocate and offer your friend Rob a drink. Now I'm keeping score, that's 3. The first is kicked in, the second's going, and the rest of the story you guys know. There is no such story as entertaining possibly stopping the fourth, because there's an allergy already in motion that demands that I sit there, an absolute slave to the disease of alcoholism as far as its physical part. And I got to have more. There's a phenomenon of craving that takes place. And then there's a mental part to it. The book says that the main problem the alcoholic sinner is in his mind. Now, what the hell does that mean? I've been out there. You know when you get out there? And it can happen in here. Man, I've been on runs where I've been up for 4 days and 5 days, and I start pushing that envelope to 6 days, and I haven't slept a wink, and I haven't ate. And what I'm doing is I'm fascinated by this morphous of my skin turning from this color into gray and yellow. You ever been there? Okay? And you're looking at your eyes and shit in the mirror, you know, and going crazy. And I see things, you know, what was that? You know? And they weren't there. And people were there trying to tell me it wasn't there, but I knew they were there, you know? And paranoia is a horrible thing. God. And that's why I came in, I think, with paranoia. Jesus Christ. Oh, man, could I tell you stories? Driving in the right lane, 55 miles an hour, you know. I know the FBI's there. I know the FBI's there. Crawling around on my hands and knees because I'm living on a second-story apartment, and I know across the street they can see me. And I'm strategically turning on my light and turning it off, turning the shades, turning them up, peeking up and down, walking around. I was preparing for a military tour, you know what I mean? I didn't know it, man. I didn't know it, man. And I thought I was having a great time, to be honest with you. You know, I really did. I loved it. God, I loved it, man. I loved just doing the right amount of crank or cocaine. Now, keep in mind, our book states any form at all. Cocaine or crank. And all right, now I'm getting to talk. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but I'm talking. You know what I mean? And what's important is that you're there and that you listen. You don't talk because I got important shit to talk about. You know what I mean? You know? And then my buddy does something, and he's talking, and we're talking, you know. And then pretty soon someone says, go to the bar, you know. And then that magical thing would happen where I don't know how in the hell we're listening to a station because the buttons are changing and everybody's talking, you know. And somebody's got a joint, and we'd smoke the joint and kind of, you know. That chemist thing would kind of settle in. This is good. This feels good. And then go in and have a couple beers and a couple shots. And like I said, everything that I'd been seeking for, it would happen in that car and in that bar. You know what I'm saying? Everything I'd been looking for. But like I said, for me, what ended up happening, though, is my mind just started to kill me. And I started to see things that weren't there. And I started to have huge waves of fear that would come over me. And it would seem like I used to be able to go for a day or 12 hours and enjoy this festivity, this party. You know what I'm saying? And pretty soon it seemed to be compressed, and it was only a couple hours, and I felt betrayed. You know what I mean? And so I would try harder, and I would try different combinations, and I would try this, so much so I even grew dope. You know what I mean? And that's a whole nother story. You know, and then what happened was the third part of alcoholism, as it's defined in our book, that spiritual malady, that soul sickness. My gut and my heart was just getting drenched, and there was just, you would talk to me, but there was nobody there because I was so sad. I was so depressed. This is so not the way I wanted to be. This is so not the way I wanted to go with my life. This is so not what I want to do, is steal time from my parents when they're sitting there at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, once again wondering where in the hell is their son. He told us he wasn't going to go out, and we don't know where he is. Is the police going to call tonight? You know? And what I'm doing is I'm hanging out with these crazy fools wearing flannels and shit in Hayward. That's where I grew up. And we got these shades on. Sometimes they have purple tint and green tint. And we're out there, you know, and we got 40s. Anyone ever drink 40s? You know? There's different categories of drinking 40s, right? There's oldie. Oldie is a standby. And even tip one to the homies, you know what I'm saying? All that stuff. We did that shit. We thought we were bad. We were sad, but we thought we were bad, you know? We didn't know, man. And right about that time, what was that movie? Boys in the Hood came out, you know what I mean? And we're listening to all that crazy stuff. And, you know, we had big old speakers in the back of our cars, you know, 15-inch Sarah Vegas. And it was so damn loud, nobody could hear, but you'd pretend to talk, you know, and you'd, you know what I'm saying, you know. We were just, you know, we were mimes to one another, you know. And I'd hang out with these guys, you know, and some of them wore all red, if you know what I'm saying, and some of them were out there, and that's the kind of stuff I found myself with, you know. And at the ripe old age of 18, I had already been in Alcoholics Anonymous. My mind said, Vic, get the hell out. You got to be 21 to be in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I left because I wasn't 21. That's what I thought the rules were. Nowhere in our book does it say you got to be 21. But that's the story of my life. If I don't know the rules, I'll make them up. And I'll try to convince you. When things aren't going my way, I'll always resort to one thing: manipulation. I'll always try to get you to see my way as defiantly and as cleverly as this feeble mind has. And it's been the thing that's killed me my entire life. And if I'm not careful in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'll do the same thing. There hasn't been some miraculous change. I'm not a miracle. The miracle is Alcoholics Anonymous. If I was a miracle, we'd be screwed. You know what I'm saying? And if I'd have told my sponsor, hey, man, I'm a miracle, he would have dropped me off in the real Linda Woods. I don't think I've ever been able to find my way back. You know? What kind of shit is that? You know? The book doesn't say the miracle. The book says that the miracle, like for me, is that phenomenon of craving was removed this morning. Man, I tried so many times to remove that craving. Think about that, how funny that is. A mind trying to remove a physical thing. I tried, today I'm not going to drink. Today I'm going to hang out with that smart guy in astronomy. You know what I'm saying? And that guy bored the hell out of me because he didn't want to have fun, you know. He wanted to go to the computer lab and research shit, you know. And I want none of that, you know. And and that's how I ended up here in Sacramento. Like I said, at the ripe old age of 18, I had already seen what was happening was the disease of alcoholism in my life was progressively getting worse. And I was taking myself to places that I did not want to go to. And there was nothing but shame and guilt already happening at that age. So it doesn't matter how old you are. Alcoholism doesn't care. And so my parents, very, very loving parents. I don't come from an abusive family. I don't come from a family where I was sexually molested or anything like that. I come from a family that there was a lot of love. They're from the Azores Islands, which are in the middle of the Atlantic. And my family's like that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Everybody's talking, you know, nobody's listening. The only way to be heard is you got to yell, you know what I mean? And we had just a pack of them up at the house, you know what I'm saying? Took them to Thunder Valley, man. That was like a spiritual experience, you know? My mom loves gambling, you know what I'm saying? And my dad at one point offered her $20, man. She couldn't have got that $20 out of that hand and put it in the machine faster than I think I could have had a drink, you know what I'm saying? And so we took them out there and we had a great time and all that stuff. But a wonderful family. A solid example of how to live life. They're immigrants in this country. My dad was a garbage man. He worked for Hoffa's Union. He won't talk about it, but he worked for Teamsters. You know what I'm saying? He's got a nice pension today. You know what I mean? And he's living a damn good life. And I love my parents. And thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous, some of that damage that I'd done is able to be fixed out today. You know, it's a living amends type situation. And so I ended up here in Sacramento. And my mom and dad said, son, we don't have much money, but we'd like to give you an education. And I said, all right. And they said, well, where do you want to go? And I said, I don't know. I said, how about, and I wanted to be a politician. That's what, you know, it's political science. I wanted to be a politician, you know, straighten out the world and shit. You know, that's what my mind was telling me, you know. So and I had politics, you know, and I came up here to Sacramento. Man, it didn't take me more than a couple days. I found them and we were off and running. You know what I'm saying? And sick attracts sick. And that's always what I'll attract is sick. I never found healthy girlfriends. They were always, my relationships that I had were always based on jealousy. There was always conspiracies involved. There was always yelling. There was always hollering. There was always shoving. There was always verbal abuse, mental abuse, everything from my part because I'm just a mess. And the ones that are closer to me seem to be the ones that I take it out on the most. You know what I'm saying? And that's what happened. And on June 22nd of 1995, I remember it as if it were yesterday, my mother, after a series of very odd circumstances, I had, I guess you could call it detoxed for about a week on my mom and dad's sofa. And I had all that venom in me, you know what I'm saying, and there was no dope. And I promised them that I'd try to do something, and I was freaking sweating like a madman on that sofa, and I couldn't eat. I couldn't hold anything down. All I was doing was freaking puking my guts out. It's that borderline green shit, you know what I'm saying? And just sweating and just trying to release all that stuff. And she took me to this one lady in Oakland. And the next thing I knew, I was in this truck with my cousin going to, it was a rehabilitation place in Scotts Valley, and it was called the Camp. It was basically rehab is what it was. And they said, Vic, do 30 days in here. I says, okay. And I'd love to tell you that I never thought about taking a drink or anything like that, but the first question I asked my cousin, who I used to drink and get high with, is, dude, you got any weed? You know, I was thinking one more time. And I felt screwed when I got in there because I noticed, you know how we're smart. I learned a lot about how to get high and how to do stuff in rehabs and stuff like that. I really have. I've learned a lot, you know. Somebody says that we become practitioners of the art, and I was always looking at that stuff, you know. And I was a little pissed when I got to this rehab because there was two sections. There was the one cabin section that, you know what, that's where you went and you did your 30 days. And there was the one corner over here where you got pills and they kind of mellowed you out. And I was pissed because I didn't get the free pills and I could have had 2 or 3 more days. That's the kind of guy that came to Alcoholics Anonymous. It wasn't somebody that, I didn't come here on virtue or goodwill or, hey, I'm going to get sober. Man, this was the last place I wanted to come to. Are you kidding me? 22 years old, with all due respect, you guys were all old, man. You know, and you guys are hugging each other and you're saying, I love you. I don't want to hug you, and I sure as hell don't love you, and screw your program. I want some of them pills, you know what I'm saying? That's the God's honest truth, man. And you know why I didn't want to come to Alcoholics Anonymous? Because I knew you guys were going to talk about that God shit. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want nothing to do with that stuff. I'd been through the Catholic thing and la-da-da-da, and I didn't get it, you know, up and down and kneeling down, and you got to pray and all this stuff, you know. But you know what? I think I'm here a little bit because of my mom praying all the rosaries. You know what I'm saying? That's the God's honest truth, man. God, that woman prayed, and candles. You know the old school shit, you know. And oh man. And so I got here at the ripe old age of 22. In the old days, we get our 12 steps from the Oxford group, which had 6 steps. Alcoholics Anonymous is real simple. There ain't nothing to write about. 2 words: complete deflation. Yeah. And I did my 30 days there, and I ended up at the Madison House, the Madhouse, and they called it the Madhouse for a reason. Oh, that place was, and it was before it's nice now, man. You know, back then it was bologna sandwiches and hard-boiled eggs, and you'd have to fight to get an egg, and salt, you know what I'm saying? It was like a war in there, man, and you know that prestigious food, you know what I'm saying? And the whole time my mind would be killing me because I'm thinking about something that's not happening. What I'm thinking about is that delusional world that I live in that's not the real world. I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do, which for me is absolute poison. For me to have a mind that I do, which is the problem, which is where it centers, for me to try to come up with a solution never works. Trying to come up with the solution with the problem is a problem solution. So for me to spend any time in thought is absolutely futile. But man, when you have an obsessive mind that's fueled by missions, you know, and rights, and here's the key: judgment, right? Judgment. I'm not judging, but I'm judging. Okay? And I got this whole facade of being a tough guy because what I am is I'm scared to death. And I can only show you this mask, this chameleon that I have, because inside I'm absolutely shattered, confused. I don't know what I am. I come in Alcoholics Anonymous, I do the same thing I always did. I went back to the tough guy shit, you know what I mean? And these guys are laughing at me. Look at this guy, you know? It does wonder for the ego when you have a sponsor like I had, you know, and have, you know. He kind of went away, came back. And so at the 90th day, I was at the Madison House, and what was happening was my life was getting worse, sober than it had been drinking. And I felt cheated. I did. I thought, man, you know, this thing, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a scam. I see people like Clancy, and he's all happy, but how come I don't have what he is? And someone says, well, dude, he's been around like 20-something years. You've been around 20 days. The hell do you expect, you know? Oh, well, that makes sense. And my problem is I'm never willing to pay the price. Oh, I'll look good and I'll sound good for 5 minutes of the freaking marathon. But after that, I want what's at the end of the finish line, and I want to drop out and take one of those, you know, neener scooters to get to the front of the line. You know what I mean? That's the kind of guy I am. I'll cheat, I'll lie, I'll steal, I'll do whatever. And that's what came to Alcoholics Anonymous. And so 90 days, I was at Christ the King. It was in Citrus Heights. I don't think that meeting is there anymore. It was a Tuesday meeting, and I remember it was a Tuesday meeting because there was jelly donuts. And jelly donuts, 90 days, absolutely going crazy in Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's a little something, though, about that. I didn't have a sponsor. Imagine that. I was trying to take me through the 12 steps. I already described the state of mind that I had. I was saying things to this day that I cringe and shame in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't have a home group, and most importantly, I hadn't been launched into what the first sentence of our precious chapter 7 says. Nothing, no thing, so much as ensures immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. I didn't have that. Our book says that medicine may one day, or science, come up with the solution. That's the closest thing known to mankind in the hundreds and thousands of years that this deadliest disease has had us for a guy like me as a solution. Nothing will ensure immunity as work with others. So I met this crazy guy. His name was Bill. He's talking in Gulf. And he had one eye out and he had one eye down. He had this tight-ass shirt that said something about the language of the heart, whatever that means. And he had these tight, short jeans, which where I came from, we wore nothing like that. We wore them baggy, you know what I'm saying? And he had his shirt belt tied in, and he kind of had this 1970, 80 hair wave shit going on, I saw him, and I immediately put my eyes down, you know what I mean? He became my sponsor. And he had this big blue Caprice Classic from the 1970s or 80s. This thing sit 12, And he always had newcomers. He always had non-filter brown packs of GPC cigarettes, And he always seemed to smoke half of it and put one down, light another, and then go back to that one, talk about Alcoholics Anonymous, and then turn the tape of Alcoholics Anonymous on. And he had this whole show. It was quite entertaining of just this thing. And so we'd get over there, and he, of course, took me through my steps immediately. And about a week later, he said, all right, you're going to work with others. And I said, I don't know if you noticed, man, but I kind of want to drink, and I don't really have anything to offer anybody. He said, that's all right. And he read to me in the book that says, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. Either you're going to stay with what you don't have, or I suggest you get your ass good and busy. Now, what do you say to that? I was always kind of nodding, trying to figure out, all right, ready when to say, and he'd read stuff like that. Did you get that? I knew better to argue. Like, yeah, no. I was already trying to think of, okay, yeah, man, and that, and after a while I started catching on. If I followed his tones and inflections, I could time it just right. Yes. Because I wanted to be on his good side, man. I had seen what had happened if you screwed up for the day, man. Oh, I was miserable. He used to shame us all the time in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. Say, just sit down. That's not how we taught you in here. You're not allowed to speak like that in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we're in places like Norsac. Man, I'm looking around at the caliber of the humanity in that place, and that fool ain't letting me talk. You know what I'm saying? I was getting a little pissed off, you know who I am and shit. I know exactly who you are. You're a jackass. Shut up, You don't know a goddamn thing about Alcoholics Anonymous, and you're not going to ruin the Alcoholics Anonymous that gave me life and that I love. You're going to sit down. You're going to shut up. You're going to sit in the front row. Back then you could smoke. You're going to empty the ashtrays. You're going to pour coffee. You got that? Yes. Started pouring coffee into the ashtrays and the cigarettes and the coffee, you know what I'm saying? And they just say, keep coming back, And, oh, God, that was such a production. And they had this guy, Neil, that he used to sponsor. And I hated Neil. He was my first roommate in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's why I went to live after the clean and sober house. Neil was a dipshit if ever there was a dipshit. Neil made me feel good about who I was, and I felt about that good. You know what I'm saying? That mofo had teeth like this, and he never brushed his... It got so bad that my sponsor used to carry toothpaste and a toothbrush in his glove compartment for that sorry ass to brush his teeth. That's how bad. That's a true story. That's how bad he stunk. And And compared to that, when my mom would ask me, I'd say, I think I'm doing okay. I'm getting better, you know. Hey, things are looking up, you know. Oh. And that dumbass man, so we had this one-bedroom apartment, and we had 2 cots, and we had 1 frying pan and hash browns. That's all we ever seemed to have, you know, and just craziness. And so Neil wasn't too good at following direction, and so one day Bill had said, all right, look, you never seem to, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, I want you, we were living in Town and Country on Fulton and Marconi. He says, I want you to meet me in the parking lot because we're going to pick up cigarette butts. You're going to be of service to society because all you do is take. You won't get a job because he'd go to look for a job and go on the bus and come back talking about women. Nothing pissed off my sponsor more than not following a direction, especially if you were pursuing women. You know what I'm saying? Because he always said, quit hurting. You got no business being in a relationship. What the hell do you have to offer? Sickness? And there was one of those, yeah, you know, you're right. You know, and I think I have a little bit more, but we won't go into that. That's in the sexual inventory. You know what I'm saying? Like he says, I'm always a freaking legend in my own mind, you know what I'm saying? Put on my boots and shit, and yeah, you know. And so Neil wouldn't follow direction, and this one time, I could not believe it. Bill had told Neil, with his hard-earned money, to go out and buy one of those outdoor bells that are usually in the outdoor nurseries at like Home Depot, you know, those loud mofos. And he said to mount it above his bed. And I said, man. And so then, you know, next morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, you see this guy spring up with his white underwears answering to go talk to his sponsor. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of sponsor I had. And there was one particular time I didn't have a lighter. And I got to tell this story. And my sponsor was trying to teach me the principle of consideration and trying to think about other people. And that when you tell them you're going to be somewhere, that you're there on time, if not early. You know, and don't inconvenience. He was trying to teach me all this real good stuff. And I could never seem to bring matches. I was like, hey, man, you got a light, you know, and all that stuff. He says, Victor, come here. And we're in Rio Linda. That place, they got some shit called Tecarnsis. What the hell's that place? Texas, Arkansas? That's Rio Linda. You know what I'm saying? That place. And so I'm out there. He says, all right, Vic, go out to the back of my car. And I already knew this was trouble because I had seen the fruits of his work and other proteges, and whenever this stuff was happening, it was not a good sign. And he tells me, go out there and grab me a piece of that rope and that tape. And I did. And I'm thinking, oh, shit. And all that's going through my mind, man, this mofo better be able to prove it's in the book, you know. Now, I know it's not in the book, but I know that no matter what happens in this situation, he's going to be able to prove it's in the book. And he presents me this necklace that has a lighter with a rope, and he says, you're going to wear it. I'm thinking, no, what? I mean, I'm going to wear it. The hell has this got to do with Alcoholics Anonymous? Where is this in the book is what I'm thinking. And what came out was, yeah, okay, you know. Yes, exactly. Yes. And so I wore that damn thing, I don't even know how long. I was absolutely shameful and horrified. And I tell you, man, all I got in my pockets is still this lighter. I still have that lighter. I still get a kick out of seeing it every once in a while. And pretty soon that sponsor and I, we started to farm a bond beyond anything on this planet. Today I am as close to my father as I'd like to think a father and son could be. I look up to that man. I've always wanted to be like him. I love him. I tell him. I kiss him on the cheek every time. And I give him a big old hug. And my mom, worship her. I do everything I can. But that sponsor and I started something that this way of life demands, and that's rigorous honesty, and I had never done that before. I started talking about stuff that I experienced and stuff that was going throughout the day, and I tell them, hey, man, I was standing in line, man, and I was worried about me, and I couldn't think about it. I thought everybody was looking. I felt uncomfortable. What the hell is that about? He'd say, well, you know, that's called selfishness and self-centeredness, and he'd read in that book. That would be a theme for the next 3 or 4 years of my life, is him reading that section of the book. And thank God that he was never too busy. Thank God he never said stuff like, Vic, why don't you go home and read it and then write a report and come back to me. That man did not deal with the disease of alcoholism that way. What he did is said, grab your book and get the hell over here right now. He always had a pot of coffee always had a pot of coffee on, and either he would say, "What is your question?" or he would start off reading. And 30 minutes would turn into an hour would turn into 2 hours. 2 hours would turn into 3 hours, and it was like a symphony pretty soon that was coming. And all of a sudden, all those heebie-jeebies that I had, they'd start kind of calming down. And I'd leave in about 2 minutes after there, after feeling all pumped up. I was right back to where I was, thinking about, well, there's it and all that stuff. You know? I got it now, I'm able to say that and all that stuff, you know. Now, just as great as this man was an example, and he knew everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous, the big day came where he took me to meet his sponsor. And, you know, we're going by the goats and the chickens and the horses and, you know, and, man, they don't even have sidewalks there and shit, you know. They got these ditches, you know. And they got cars on cinder blocks. I thought cinder blocks, you know, you made stuff with them. They're apparently, you know, foundations for living dwellings, you know, and they had trailers and this train that always came by, you know. And it's funny, I live in Natomas, just a stone's throw away, because I don't want to get too far from that special place, you know. And so we went into this house on West 6th. And I walked in, and I lost them already, because there was 20 or 30 members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was like this rocking environment. There was laughing, there was screaming, there was good talk. There was the good talk there. And everybody was hugging, and smoke all over the place, and big books. And there in this corner was this man with these kind of crazy crooked ears. And he had a goatee like, ha, ha, ha. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah. And if you know who I'm talking about, of course, he's my sponsor. I love that man to death. I love his wife to death. I love his children to death. I love that whole family. And I hope that you're fortunate like I was, that you have somebody that'll open up their house, and as you're kind of going through the different phases that are necessary in Alcoholics Anonymous to kind of grow up and learn what it is that Alcoholics Anonymous is and what it isn't, most importantly, that you have a place that you can kind of go, and when you're all screwed up, that they don't care, you know. They're just more content on living a way of life, you know. And I had that for a long time and still do. But that guy was nuts. That guy was always talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. And we would go over there on Sundays in the middle of July. And by about 40 minutes, we'd get there at about 7 or 8 because my sponsor always wanted to get there early. And about an hour in, I'm already sweating, you know. And I got shorts on, and they're drinking coffee, man. And I'm like, what the hell are these guys doing? You know, drinking coffee. And they're smoking cigarettes. And pretty soon, man, you could just see them levitate. You know what I mean? Oh, water walking, talking about God. And I so desperately wanted to be able to communicate and transmit and have the dialogue that those people had. God, I wanted that so desperately. And I listened. Hour after hour, day after day, I washed their dishes day in and day out. I washed cars. I moved people. I did whatever it was that was indicated to be done that they seemed to be doing. And the small hope that somehow, some way, an absolute, completely deflated alcoholic like me might be able to have a chance to have what it was that they had. And they said, Vic, we don't know. You're young. Vic, we don't know. You got strong ties to an old world. Vic, we don't know. Vic, we don't know. It seemed like I didn't have a chance, and they didn't lie to me. They didn't say, Vic, you're going to be all right. They said, Vic, a mofo like you, we doubt it. You know, they didn't lie to me, man. You know what I'm saying? When I say a newcomer, I tell them the truth. You're far more screwed up, buddy, than you even realize. What the hell are you going to do telling them everything's going to be fine? I don't even know if I'm going to be fine. You know what I'm saying? Alcoholism. And all I need is just 5 minutes of monitoring the mind, and it's still not a very healthy diagnosis today. You know what I'm saying? And so anyway, so that was kind of the thing. And then we went out and we saved the souls. You know what I mean? And I started kind of getting a little bit, cocky. You know how you get when you know 2 words from one page, you know? I'd say shit like, you gotta let go. And people would nod, I'd be like, all right, hey. First things first. Yeah, you're right, Vic, hey, this guy's getting it, all right, man. And pretty soon I started experimenting with stuff, but never when my sponsor was around. He'd be like, oh, no, that's not in the book. I didn't teach you that way. You're effing it all up, you know. Just shut up. We'll talk about it later. Just get him in the car, you know. Get him in the car. And we get him in the car, and I would start, and he would turn on the magic. And that magic of that simple thing that Larry Thomas came up here and talked about. There's that picture, we've all seen it, where the two guys are on the side of that bed, and there's that one guy. We've all been there, and we've all hopefully been on that side when you're the one carrying that message. There's absolutely no problems. I've gone to those kinds of situations, worried about money, worried about, am I ever going to get married, worried about my parents, and I leave there after that situation without a problem in the world. Now, how do you explain that for a natural worrier? I worry about worrying. You know what I'm saying? And that's what happened. I got hijacked and kidnapped and bought and sold by Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what they told me. And they said, Victor, Alcoholics Anonymous will be your way of life, and you will put it before anything and everything in your life. And to the best of my ability, what I've done is just that. Just tried to remember every single day what the hell it was like, what I smelt like, what I looked like, what it was that all that demoralizing and pitiful and comprehensible moments that I had, and I had my fair share of those just disastrous, shameful things, waking up, not even knowing where the hell I was at, all that stuff, you know. And then, like I said, at about 2 or 4, something started to happen. Actually, it was at about 6. There seemed to be a little bit of giddy up, a little bit of electricity happening. And I didn't know what was happening, you know. I wasn't sure if it was another bad idea that was coming, you know. But I actually felt like, man, I felt all right, you know what I mean? And I go to my sponsor, and I'd tell him 2 sentences, and then he'd interrupt and tell me about how he felt or some shit like that, you know what I mean? But I'll never forget this day. I'd been sober about 2 years, and this is the kind of home group that I hope that you have. I was a member over there on the North Highlands High Night group, and we were meeting over at St. Andrews in North Highlands. It's now morphed into 2 meetings and then a 3rd meeting, and it's the way Alcoholics Anonymous is. And the big day came. Like I said, I was going to Sac State completely. I was getting D's and U's and W's. I was getting shit you don't even know you could get. I thought it was A, B, C, and D, you know, and you know, and they're like, dude, you know, so I go up to Bill and I say, I don't know what the hell to do. I think I got about 1.5 years left of school. Don't ask me how. Everything's all right, I guess. So I went and talked to them, and they're like, yeah, we'll let you back, but, you know, you got to show some improvement, buddy, you know. And the kind of grades I had, all I had to do was show up every day, and I was showing improvement, you know what I'm saying? I'd sit there with my shades on, trying to cheat, you know, and tweaking and stuff and writing stuff. I had one guy, I was up for like 3 days spinning, and I was just writing these notes on geography. He's like, dude, what are you writing? I'm like, I don't know, I got to write, you know what I mean? I just fucking write, I got to write, it's good stuff, you know. I still have those notes to this day in my dad's attic, because one day I want to read that stuff, you know what I mean? And so the big day came, and I couldn't believe it, and my sponsor gave me the best direction. I've gotten 2 of the most best simple directions. I'll get to the second one. The first was, Vic, you're going to go to school like you go to work. You're going to go 8 hours a day, you're going to sit in the front row, and whatever you do, for God's sakes, shut up and just ask questions. You're not there to teach anybody anything. You're not there to inform anybody of anything. You're there to get an education, and you might want to try that in Alcoholics Anonymous too. Okay. So I went. That was another one of those rights. And so I went, and, you know, whatever, and pretty soon, you know, D's got to C's. I'll never forget when I called my mom. I passed all my classes, you know, and stuff, and pretty soon D's became B's, and I graduated on the Dean's Honor Roll, which was, I think, three A's and 2 B's with some minuses and pluses in there, you know. And the big day came, and it was graduation, and they were going to have it at the Arco Arena, and it was the hardwood floor, and I had my black cap and gown on. I was so happy. I didn't know where the hell to put the tassel, you know, left, right, back, whatever. And I go out there, and I'm walking on that hardwood floor, and I look up into the rafters, and there's about 20 or 25 members of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they're going like this. You know, and my mom's there, she's crying, snot's flying, my dad's filming the tapes, I can't believe this stuff, you know, he made it. You know, and everybody's happy. And they're not happy. You know what they're cheering for? They're cheering for Alcoholics Anonymous. They're not cheering for me. Are you kidding? If I showed you my 5th step today, you'd be saying, dude, you shit ought to be locked up, homie, you know. And they tried, you know. They had me one time. They let me out. And time's always so short, and that was so great, man, and I got to graduate. And don't sell yourself short in Alcoholics Anonymous, man. Strive for it all. You know what I'm saying? People say Alcoholics Anonymous don't work. I was one of those fools that thought that too. I sat in the back. I was cool. I didn't realize that it's an entirely different mountain view when you're in the front row. And what I was seeing was the ass of Alcoholics Anonymous. Wondering why it stank. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Man, I got the buzz, and I'll be damned if I give it up. I fought my whole life. This is exactly what I've been looking for my entire life. And I could care less if you think I'm crazy or if I make sense. Ask my wife. Shit, we were mosh pitting before we came here to Rage Against the Machine. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, that's the life I lived, because for a long time this was a dead soul, and there was that depression and sadness and that loneliness. God forbid, man, that's no way to live. I didn't have a life. And Alcoholics Anonymous gave me. And I owe it to those people before me that labored and listened to all my crazy, asinine conspiracies time after time, and just provided with that patience, that love, and that tolerance. And I owe it to those guys to get up right in the front and work with as many of them as God will let me. And I travel for a living. But the second best direction, I think, was Vic. I went up to Bill. I says, yo, man, I says, I haven't dated in a while. About 6 years, God's honest truth. I says, do the math, 22 to 28, right? What the hell were you doing at 22 to 28? Other freaking meetings, man, And, hey, works. That's all I got to say. And so I said, hey, man, I've been checking out. There's this cute blonde at work, this pretty young guy says, what do you think? Very wise. He said, he says, you're going to date her. How do you do that? He says, no, I'm serious. I says, I'm serious. You're going to ask her questions. Ask her what her favorite color is. I'm thinking, all right, dude, this is crazy. Ask her what her favorite color is. That's the friggin' direction. I drove all the way out here, and that's the direction. Ask her what her favorite color is. He says, don't talk about yourself. Ask her about her. Find out who she is, and then you let her see all of you. The good, the bad, and most importantly, Mr. Silva, the ugly. Warts and all. Yeah, man. I always did it the other way. I'm not here to be a big shot in Alcoholics Anonymous, by the way. I'm just here to be just a regular member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Out there, I was always the big shot, and then you saw the ugly. He was saying do it the opposite. You know what I'm saying? And so we went out to this Max Cafe, had a cup of coffee in Roseville, and I did what my sponsor said. Once again, doubting that what the hell he's talking about is going to make sense. What's your favorite color? Before I knew it, she knew I was an alcoholic. I learned about her. I think we fell in love that night, to be honest with you. I really did. And I didn't go there looking for love, But alcohol, and it's an amazing thing. When I take me out of the damn equation, my wants, my needs, and I come to expect the guidance from God and direction, amazing things have happened in my life. I travel for a living. I work for Deloitte & Touche, a big firm. I talk with fancy people that I don't understand what they're saying. I do the same thing with my sponsor. And I only ask them one question. Is that check coming? As long as they'll have me, I'll try to be as polite and a solid member of Alcoholics Anonymous there. You know what I'm saying? These guys are filthy rich folks. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't think that was going to happen. And slowly but surely, all this good stuff started happening. And so I met my wife, and pretty soon, all this stuff happened. And I said, all right, Ron, I says, I think I want to get married. I was 28 years old, 30 years old. 31. 31. This was 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years ago. And Ron says, okay. And I says, here's my plan. And the plan was this, I don't care. I had such a fear of what other people thought of me. And there's such a freedom in not being bonded to self, which is to say what your thoughts are of what others might think of you. There's such a freedom in that, man. And that's here. There's a difference from sober and Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been sober many times. Actually, there's a big difference in Alcoholics Anonymous and living this way of life. You know what I'm saying? And I forgot where the hell I was going. Yeah, that's right. The plan, go to the Golden Gate. And that's where I proposed to my wife, was on the Golden Gate, that first tower. I dropped knee, gave her a piece of jewelry, and, and we're off and married in beautiful Santa Barbara at the Biltmore. Beautiful, absolutely gorgeous place, beyond my wildest dreams. A guy like me, I'm the kind of guy that ends up landscaping places like that. That's the best I was going, and that landscape was flawless, and the smells were flawless, and the place was flawless, and everybody it was just beautiful. My wife was beautiful, and your parents and all that stuff. And it was Alcoholics Anonymous that was in the wedding, that was in the audience, and the whole 9 yards, And we went off and a little bit about what kind of is going on now is I never thought in my wildest dreams that I'd really be able to travel at all. And as a result of a little bit of discipline through some solid direction and a little bit of frugal saving and taking care of bills, we were able to go to Italy, to Portofino, to Florence, to Rome. We saw the Pope, I've been to France, been to the Eiffel Tower, been to Avignon, been to Nice. I've been to the islands where my family was from 2 years ago. Got to take my wife. She got to see the actual shack that my grandfather was raised his family in. And we were able to be in a wedding there for my cousin, the one that didn't have the weed, where I was the best man in his wedding. And I asked him, "You got any coffee?" And I love that man to death. He's like my brother. And last year was an absolute gem. They lost my luggage, and we started off in Morocco. For about 4 days in 120-degree weather, I was washing my underwear and socks by hand and wondering where in the F God was. Trying to find a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in a Muslim country where they're playing the prayers, all that stuff. And God was there. God was there. And been to Spain. Talked Portuguese to this guy driving to the Madrid airport to where we could go meet our parents, my wife's parents, my sister on a cruise that we went through Greece. This year we're going to go back to Paris, and we're going to go watch Portugal play in the Euro Cup in Switzerland. And I don't tell you this stuff to impress you. What I tell you is that this shit impresses the hell out of me, that a guy like me is like, "Are you serious? That's my life? Dude, I never thought I was going to get out of Rio Linda." You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Sign me up, buddy. Sign me up. Life is short. Sobriety is fantastic. Sobriety is not that Britney Spears horseshit that people will teach you in here. Sobriety is life. It's freedom. It's honesty. It's tough. It's hard. It's real. You know what I'm saying? And most importantly, don't forget, I cannot forget that first sentence. I'll say it again. Nothing so much ensures immunity from drinking as intensive work with others. I'll wrap it up with this story. It's my most favorite story that I ever heard, and it's from a guy named Gene Duffy. And it's about a sharecropper's family out of Georgia. There's a mother, a father, and there's a daughter and a little boy. And year in and year out, they just had enough money to be able to pay off their crops. In this one particular year, they realized, holy crap, we actually have $5 left over. They had $5 left over. And the family, being as wise as it was, it decided, let's get something that the whole family can enjoy. So they decided to get themselves a mirror because they had never seen their own reflections. Oh, they had seen the beauty in each other, but they had never seen their own reflection. So the big day came and arrived, and the mirror came, and they were all excited. And out of respect, they handed that mirror to the father. And the father kind of, gave himself a couple shots, on the nose, and because he knew how beautiful he had it, how good he had it. And then he handed that mirror over to the mother, his wife. And she, very maturely kind of, and then she handed the mirror over to the daughter, and she he and ha, whatever, all that stuff, And then she handed it over to her brother. And the thing about the little boy was that out of admiration and respect and love and idleness that he had for his father, he always used to follow him around on the fields. And one time while his dad was milking one of the cows, one of those cows had kicked out and completely struck and destroyed this innocent boy's face and had become this grotesque piece of flesh. And so when the boy saw his own reflection for the first time, he did what any kid would do, and he went to his mother. He immediately ran to his mother and said, "Mom, have I always been this ugly?" And she said, No, you haven't always been this ugly. And he said, "But what I don't understand is how can you love me when I've been this ugly?" And she said, "Because you're mine. Because you're mine." And you see, it took that crazy guy in that blue Caprice Classic, Gaddafi, to bring me to good people like you in Arkansas or whatever, to teach me and show me that there was a new way of life. And I came to find out that it was only God that truly knew me in my ugliness. And that being as wise and as all-powerful, I suppose, as God is, that he said, "Son, if you're going to come to me, you're going to come on your own power. I'm not going to make you come to me." And I came to find him here. I had looked outside of me my entire life. Man, I read Hinduism, Muslimism, Catholicism. I looked everywhere, man. I read in libraries. I looked everywhere outside of me. And the damnedest thing is that God hid himself in the last place I'd look. 2 inches behind my belly button. And I had to come to Alcoholics Anonymous. Trailer park religion. You know what I mean? Hardly. First of all, we're not a religion, but that's what my mind told me, to find out who and what I am. Minta, there's a beautiful woman in here, Minta. You guys probably know her. She says this, and I'll shut up. Did I? It's right on the money. It says, we're not human beings here living a spiritual experience. No. We're spiritual beings living a human experience. And because of Alcoholics Anonymous and solid sponsorship and a lot of love and tolerance, you guys have allowed me to find that. And so from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much.